So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes and challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this morning, I'm delighted that we have with us Jamie Marshall, who's digital specialist at Everon. So, Jamie, thank you for coming on board and spending a bit of time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and your business, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Thank you for having me on, first of all. It's good to be on a podcast and to be able to share our stories. It's always good. Um, Everon is our company. So we are a IT company, essentially. We kind of want to work with clients in regulated industries. So we only do B2B and we niche down and specialize into regulated sectors. So charities, accountants, medical practices, solicitors, those kind of areas.
Interesting.
We try and deliver more than just keeping the lights on service that most traditional IT companies might do. So where we actually want to add value is by transforming the way business works through the use of technology or helping company goals and KPIs being
Great.
achieved by using new technologies. And then that also led to a second company called Dynamics 365 Cloud, which we created last year and is an evolution of Everon. So Everon kind of does your day-to-day stuff. The Dynamics Cloud company does your ERP and your like enterprise resource platform
Great.
solutions. So the two work hand in hand to drive your business forward, essentially.
Brilliant. That's where music to me is because my background was technology historically, but it isn't about technology. It's technology is there to serve a business, and if we understand that, and we can then talk the language of business owners of and businesses of what they want to achieve, it's got to be more valuable than just talking about the technology and getting that perfect.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're the worst tech people, for throwing acronyms and kind of talking tech speak. And I think, yeah, that essentially hurts what we're trying to achieve when we work with clients and people that aren't necessarily super tech focused. So I think that's a really good
Yeah.
point.
Brilliant. I think it's really valuable to have work with partners across the board that understand what we as businesses are trying to achieve and
Yeah.
support that as opposed to just being good at delivering that bit of that business support tool. So absolutely wonderful. So if we sort of start where it all started, Jeremy, if you tell us a little bit more about your background, how you got into business and why this particular one, that would be great.
So from an early age at school, I think I just sort of I was aware that I was good at problem solving. I'm
Great.
not super academic, but problem solving was something I naturally enjoyed doing, and that kind of led me onto the IT path when I was learning at school.
Yep.
Obviously, problem solving and IT kind of go hand in hand, so that's probably where the tech side of stuff came
Yeah.
from. In terms of owning a business and dreams of owning a business, I wouldn't say necessarily that I ever set out to say I'm going to run an IT business or I'm going to do X, I'm going to do Y. But I always remember telling my mum and dad I wanted to have a Ferrari by the time I was 30.
Brilliant.
So it was probably naive, obviously, and a bit of a vanity metric. But I always remember saying that. And I guess that combined with the fact that I was learning tech and I knew a tech business would have a high ceiling for earnings and things like that, it just kind of pushed me in that direction, essentially. And then while I was doing my A levels, I went and worked for a local IT company doing sort of home computer repairs and things like that.
Yep.
The business itself had a B2B element, but as I was quite young, I wasn't that involved in it. But essentially, as I grew into that business and I started doing more and more, especially after I finished school, I kind of learned that B2B side. And then ultimately, that kind of transformed into Everon.
Brilliant.
My current business partner now followed a similar path, and we essentially worked for our boss, who then became a business partner in Everon in the early days. So
Brilliant.
yeah,
So Ferrari. So have we? Is it arrived? Are we waiting for it? Is it?
he's definitely not arrived. No, he's definitely not arrived.
It's interesting what you said there because it really is about it being a goal and for me it is important to set goals. I mean, as a kid, you that's got to be one of the goals. There isn't. It's not going to be, a holiday home, a ski chalet in the Alps or a holiday home. It's going to be a bright red Ferrari. It's got to be. But it's interesting. I remember somebody saying some time ago. It's a really interesting thing was that um, being childlike in our dreams is really valuable. The challenge we have with massive dreams as children, and then unfortunately, what happens is we let reality reduce our dreams rather than increase our reality to meet our dreams. If that makes sense.
Right, okay.
And
Yeah.
I think it's bang on. We tend to give ourselves excuses about why we don't want to achieve that. But obviously as we grow, maybe our actual goals and dreams change. But yeah, no, that's wonderful. I love that you told your parents you were gonna own a Ferrari by 30. That's so cool. So again, looking over now over the having set everyone up and building the business, what are some of the biggest challenges you've had in founding and growing the business?
I think having to do stuff you're not comfortable with in the early
Yeah,
days is a big one. I think you obviously wear a lot of hats,
yes,
especially when you're starting out. And the problem is, I don't think anyone can really teach us some of the elements you really need to know. And it's only through learned experience that you kind of understand what went wrong or how you can make it better and those kind of things. Um, People was a big one for me that I'm not saying we necessarily got it wrong, but we didn't quite understand how to create a strong culture initially.
yeah,
And having, well, and obviously the Ferrari pipe dream had gone by then and been replaced with something more realistic. But having that sort of mentality of my motivation doesn't necessarily apply to everybody in the team.
yes,
And I think it was a learning point for me to understand, well, actually, what my drive is and what my goals are
yes.
don't necessarily apply to everybody else, and we have to adapt what we do and how we do it, or like the things we give people to motivate them and to build kind of a culture and a team. And that was something I don't think I ever really appreciated until we got stuck in it and we did it.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's as you said, there are learned experience that we sort of have to go through. Although we can accelerate some of the learning. I think one thing I often say to business owners is, as you said at the start, you've got to do everything. And I said that the challenge with being a business owner is ultimately the buck stops with us.
Yeah.
It does all relate back to us until we have somebody else for whom the buck stops. Until we maybe recruit somebody. But the great thing about having a business is we get to choose exactly how it is. So we can create a business that is in the way we want it to be, whether that's when we work, how we work, what we do, how we behave with our clients. And I think that's what is magical about having a business is we can create something that's very personal to us.
Yeah, I did an exercise probably in the last 6 months about culture and values for me personally and for the
Great.
company. And the two are really aligned, even though necessarily you don't, well, maybe people do go for an exercise and set it out, but we didn't necessarily do that. But having looked back at them now, they are aligned. And it's
Yeah.
obviously, like you said, because it's us, it's a personality trait of us that is embedded within the company
Yes.
and the team.
It's sort of we create our companies in our image in that respect. Is that it's who we are. And I believe really fundamentally that culture and values are fundamental to a business across the board. It's like they should be across our marketing, because it's not what we do, it's how we do it. And what we believe to be important is what will attract the right type of client for us, rather
Yeah.
than just a client that wants what we've got. It's somebody that believes the same things are important. I think that's so important. um so obviously you've had a few challenges going on and people being one. What from that, or from other things, what are the biggest learnings, and your obviously successes as well? What are some of the biggest learnings that you have about business in general?
So I'd say the two big ones probably is not everybody's got it figured out. So sometimes you can be kind of like the rabbit in the headlights, look what all these other people are doing. And I think once you actually get started in it and then you see people, or you see under the bonnet, as it
Yeah,
were, of other companies, you kind of realize that everybody's learning as they go. And it isn't a case that there is this really polished business running super slick and you
yep,
kind of just fumbling is one. And then the other one I'd say is just kind of people buy from people. It doesn't matter what we do and how we do it. Ultimately, we're a relationship business. We're a service
Yeah,
industry, and those relationships are literally number one
yeah,
value out of everything we do. And if you've got the right relationships, you'll naturally get the right clients, you'll
yeah.
get the right vendors, the right partners, that kind of stuff. But again, that's probably a lesson we've really learned in the last 3, 4 years. And we kind of used to have this idea in our head that someone would land on the website, we were good at what we did, and they would just buy the products and service. But it doesn't exist in our world anymore, I don't think.
No, and people buy for people, and values are what sort of binds people together. It really does come together, and it's so key that we can. And it seems when you think about it, I think it seems nuts that why would you want to work with people with a totally different set of values from you? Because we're just never going to get on, and that
Yeah.
you almost always find when businesses have challenges with their customers and their team, it's a mismatch of values as opposed to necessarily a mismatch of results. It's just like, we believe this, you believe that. Well, no wonder that,
Yeah,
we're
it doesn't work.
seeing the same thing. Brilliant.
Yeah, I think we've got like at the point we are now to kind of lean into that a bit more. We've got the power to say no. So, for example, if a client or a prospect comes to
Yes.
us and they're not quite right, I don't necessarily need to take on any new clients to hit targets or goals or payroll. So I've got a choice to say no, and then you kind of compounding that with more and more of the right clients, and then culture and everything gets stronger and stronger. But it's not something you short circuit. In the early days when you need to
No,
pay your rent and
no,
all the other stuff, you have to take what you can get.
100%. You have to do, yeah. And it's, I think the key thing, and we do a lot of work with this, is understanding and believing that, as you grow, there are changes in mindsets and ways of operating that should happen. It's not that it does happen or anything. It's like, I mean, I always say to people that you can get to a certain size of business with a few good people in sheer blood and guts. Just everyone work really, really hard, but in that first phase, there's a lot of fear involved because you've got to watch every penny, every decision could be the last, and all those things. So a mindset of almost like a scarcity, fearful mentality is quite helpful in many ways to get through survival. But if we keep
Yeah.
that mentality, we really, as we get to there's a point of critical mass where we need to flip into an investment mindset of, right, we are making money, and rather than keep it, we need to spend it to grow. And if we don't change, then we typically limit the growth of the company. Literally, we hold it back, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, yeah, I don't want necessarily say there was a point I can reference when we changed, but I feel we are completely different now in our
Brilliant,
mindset than where we were 10 years
brilliant,
ago.
brilliant. And you're probably aware we're a business coaching organisation, Jamie. I'm just keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general. Who's had the biggest impact on you?
So, um, the person we have right now is kind of an unofficial business coach. So to cut a really long story short, we were kind of investigating private equity and what that might look like for us a couple of years back.
Yeah,
And we got introduced to an angel investor who has been in our industry for probably 20, 30 years. He's been on our journey and done it 3, 4 times over. And ultimately, in the end, we got to know him, obviously, shared kind of what we were up to, where we wanted to be.
yep,
And he turned around and said, "You're not ready for investment. If I gave you £1 million right now, you'd like ruin it essentially."
right,
But he said, "What I'll do for you instead is I'll become kind of a bit of a leaning post, unofficial kind of mentor. Whenever you need me, as long as you want to keep in contact, keep reaching out, and we'll keep having chats and meetings." So that's been super invaluable. Like we've to this day never paid him anything. He barely lets us buy him lunch and stuff like that when we meet him.
brilliant, brilliant,
But he still lives and works in our industry, so he literally is not just kind of saying go out and do X, Y, and Z. He's doing it himself.
yes,
Or if he doesn't
yeah,
quite know the answer to something, he will show us what he's doing in his own business. And we've been and met him at his own business, and we've seen it in the
brilliant,
flesh and that sort of stuff. So that's been really, really useful for us.
brilliant. Well, that sounds wonderful. It's great to have, especially for that sort of that mentorship of people have gone where we want to go, especially to point out often we're pointing out where not to go, you know, where the snakes and crocodiles are in this journey. Wonderful. And whether that's from this guy or other places, have you got any favorite quotes or sayings that you find yourself using a lot, especially in business?
So I've got a couple they change quite often.
Yeah.
So internally with the guys, I love this idea that every client, when they come on board, has a bag of his chips because it was an American sort of podcast I heard it on, but like Chris in this bag and it's half full. So they start off neutral. And anytime we can deliver something and go a step above, we're adding chips or Chris into this bag.
Yep.
If for any point, like we had the CrowdStrike issue a week ago, whatever
Yes.
it was, there's a problem, it removes chips from that bag. But the idea is because we're constantly topping it up, we never hit below neutral in terms of sentiment. So that's one that I
Brilliant.
talk about a lot with the guys and customer experience. And then personally, one that I heard probably in the last 12 months, but is I don't really say it a lot, but it's one that I love is fear is a mile wide but an inch deep. And it's the sort of vision of you stood on the edge of land with the goal or whatever you want to be at the other side of this water. And when you look out for a mile, all you can see is water. But the minute you step into it and
Oh,
you realize it's only an inch deep, you just then can walk across it really easy. But before you take
right.
that first step, it looks really,
That's great. I love that. I've never heard anything like that.
yeah.
I collect quotes. That's why I read for the question, and yeah, I love that. And you there are like groups of quotes that are quite similar, and that's great. But that one I've never heard it quite the same as that. That's fascinating. There's a great video. I think Will Smith recorded a video a little while ago about skydiving.
All
and
right.
and if you search it, you'll find it on YouTube. And he basically talks about the fact that all the fear that the actual act of skydiving is incredibly pleasurable once you're actually free falling, and if you've done it, it's like it's incredible. It's like absolute exhilaration, and yet he's pondering is all the fear is when you're safe.
Yeah.
It's the night before in your bed, or it's actually before you take off in the airplane, or even in the aeroplane. The fear is about being outside of it rather than actually when you're doing it. And I think that's a great analogy for it. And I think he uses the phrase, all our dreams. I think all our dreams are on the other side of fear.
Right. Yeah.
I love that, but it can be a mile wide. So that's fascinating. Thank you. That's great. I'll put it on. And your point about the chips, yeah. I mean, we talk about this idea of the emotional bank account, it being like a bank account the same way that you can only withdraw emotion from problems when you've already deposited good
Yeah.
things into your relationship. And if you built up things in a relationship, when there is a problem, the relationship still works. That's fascinating. And talk about learnings, Jamie. What would you say you've learned about yourself throughout your career so far?
I think I'm just a person that will get on and do it. As in, so it's funny because I'm super into the psychology of stuff at the minute,
Great.
having kind of doing more sales related bits. And I really love all the podcasts and the learning around psychology of sales and influencing people and that sort of stuff. And I'd probably say that I know I'm a super quick decision maker and it might not always be the right decision,
Yep.
but I'll live and die by it once I've made it, or I'm not afraid to kind of roll up my sleeves and get stuck in. If I've made a decision, I can live with it. Uncertainty is something that I don't gel well with. So where I can, try and obviously make a decision or be moving in a forward momentum and not just be stagnating.
Yep.
Um, and I'd say obviously on the back of that, then I'm probably pretty resilient in the fact that I'm probably a bit stubborn as well, but I can
Brilliant.
I can kind of take the hits and knocks, and it doesn't bother me as much when we do fail or we might fall short, as long as we're learning and we're moving forwards and that kind of stuff, which I think hopefully lends itself hand in hand to being a business owner. And you got to have a bit of resilience, and you're definitely going to get knocked back at you. So
Without doubt, I think it's one of the. I think resilience is we talk about most on the two things I think are most common to people I interview is the realizing that we're more resilient than we thought, and also and I don't think it's direct related, but the idea of imposter syndrome. I think you mentioned it earlier about we think everyone else is doing great and we're not, and it's like no, everyone's got all their challenges, all their problems. Yeah, so it's quite fascinating. I think it's yeah, but yeah. I guess I'm quite interested to know. I guess looking forward, what the future looks like for you guys now. Where are you? I mean, you mentioned the cloud strike last week. I'm assuming that was quite a big thing for you because I think it was Microsoft was specifically targeted. Is that what?
Yeah, so we avoided it.
Oh, brilliant!
So ultimately, we use a different competitor product to CrowdStrike. It's not to say that it couldn't happen to the systems we use, but it just in this instance didn't. I think without getting really into the detail on the CrowdStrike bit, I think you kind of not look as such, but you need to have these securities in place. So whenever you partner with a company, you're putting trust in that company, and it's hard to, I guess, have a plan of action when you're totally in somebody else's hands, like happened with the CrowdStrike thing. I think that's when it comes back to this premise of, like you mentioned, the emotional bank account or the bag of chips.
Yes,
Like you've worked really hard to kind of top them up, and
yeah,
as long as you're open and transparent about it, you can only do what you can do, and
yeah,
that's kind of, I guess, where we land with that. In terms of us, me, where we're heading, where we want to be, we see the IT world as becoming less about fixing things. Obviously, the invention of the cloud and all the kind of AI
yes,
stuff that's coming is not going to require somebody to fix stuff like we did 5, 10, 15 years ago,
right,
or not as frequently
yeah,
anyway.
yeah,
So what we kind of see is that IT companies or IT people are going to have to transition to doing something a little bit more, and it might be more of a consultant style role where you're helping people adopt technology
yeah,
or you're helping address business pains with technologies, and that's kind of what we're doing a little bit at Everon already.
yeah,
The new company, Dynamics 365 Cloud, essentially is what we think the future is going to look like, and that is instead of having if you start a business and you have an account system, a CRM, email system, and they're all siloed bits of data, in this Dynamics, Microsoft Dynamics world, essentially it's all in one dataverse, in one system,
yeah,
and you can just interact with the data in different ways and different
yeah,
skins. So kind of we're leaning heavily into that. And I think October last year, we started, we've done about 5, 6 projects so far. We've got another couple on at the moment. We're hoping that that team's going to grow and grow, and the two will directly feed into each other. So clients of Everon might transition into wanting the Dynamics product, and people that need Dynamics will need some sort of IT managed services.
yeah,
But yeah, we kind of see that as the way forwards in terms of tech world and where we want to be and what we want to sell. And in terms of personally, we are on, probably everybody says something similar to this, but it was 15 years when we worked this out. So by the time I was 50, I wanted to be in a position where not necessarily we've sold the companies, but I can pick and choose what I want to do. If I don't want to come in, and I use the example, if I've got my children and we want to go to the seaside because it's hot like it is today, then I'm not needed in the day today. I
yeah.
can go and do those things. So that's kind of personally where we're
Great,
heading as well.
brilliant. No, very excited. I mean, it's interesting actually, Coach. Our definition of a true business is a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without its owners. Because anything else is a job, probably a very highly paid
Yeah.
job and all that, and that's great, and jobs are great. But ultimately, it's having something that, as you say, we can do, whether that's in the business, just doing the stuff we enjoy, or whether that's actually not being in the business, so we can, as you say, spend time with family, friends, doing the stuff we like. I was telling somebody the other day, we've managed to do this quite a few times now. So I think at the same time I had 2 owners in the States doing different things, different things. One guy's riding a motorbike across the mountains in Pakistan, and
Right.
one's got a place in Sicily, so he goes to there quite regularly. That's quite cool. We're just picking all these different things. It's really interesting to some extent, is that as individuals, we all want to do different things. There's just like the whole range of different things that are amazing. So Jamie, I'm also keen to know what you would say to anyone that was thinking of going into business right now.
So I'd always encourage people to do it. I'd say, like, once you've done it and you understand like it's hard, don't get me wrong, but once
Yeah.
you've started to see the traction and the possibilities, you'd never want to go back and work for somebody else.
Yeah.
I would say though that you need to go into something with your eyes open. So I wouldn't advocate anybody quit a job and go start a business in another industry that they don't understand or
Yes.
that doesn't align with their values or their goals.
Great.
Like again,
Bang
the
on.
Ferrari thing was a vanity metric when I was younger, but there's no point me saying I'm going to start a business that's only going to earn me 10K a year and that's its max potential if I want to buy a 100 grand Ferrari, for example. The logic doesn't work. So I think you have to know what you're going to get into, know it fits what you want out of it,
Yeah.
and then take the leap.
Brilliant. Love it. And if you started again, is there anything significant you do differently, do you think?
Um, I think we haven't really covered on this that much, but so when we transitioned from working for that old IT company that I was part of from
Yeah.
sixth form into Everon and kind of becoming a bit part owner, we had a third shareholder that was our old boss essentially, but he was at the other end of his working life. He was approaching 70 at the time. He didn't have the same values and goals that we had because he'd
Yeah.
been there and done it.
Yeah.
He didn't have the same drive and hunger, and we probably stayed there too long. In that point, we went through a management buyout in the end, but we should have been more daring or more. It's hindsight, isn't it? But we
It,
going back and revisiting it now, we would do that cycle a lot quicker than what we did.
yeah, I think a lot of I think that is a lot of people say, wish they'd done it earlier. I think is the key one, and that. But as you say, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and who knows, offered. And a lot of people actually say they wouldn't change anything because where they are is where they want to be, sort of thing. Just in terms of if you change one thing, the ripple effect means that maybe something else.
Yeah.
So, and finally, Jamie, what would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do so?
I think because I love that fear
Yeah, brilliant.
saying. So I think it will be a case of just get started. Like if you
Yeah,
never do anything and you never make a move forward, you're never actually going to know. And I think at 18, you've got so much time. You can make mistakes over and over again, and
love
ultimately,
it,
it isn't going to change your output, is it? You're going to do what you're going to do eventually. So just get started early, like not worry as much and just take more risk.
love it. Because fear is a mile wide and inch deep. I love that. Thank you. Yeah,
That's it, yeah.
that's really got me, that one. So I look forward to that. Jamie, thank you. It's been really fascinating talking to you. And wish you all the best with what you're doing with both businesses that you work at the moment. For anyone that's watching, that's interested in contacting you or the businesses, what would be the best way to do that?
So I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so you can find me just Jamie Marshall, or if you search for everon.co.uk, so that's everon.co.uk, that's the kind of primary business. And then the sister business, the Dynamics one, is dynamics365cloud.co.uk, and there's a contact form, there's the phone numbers on both of those, or like I say, you can find me on LinkedIn.
Brilliant. Well, as I say, thank you so much for your time today. It'd be great to swing by another 6-12 months and see what's changed, what's developed. And but in the meantime, I wish you best of luck.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.